a middle of the night disruption for Ben. What is that like 8:30?
Oh, somebody called the burn unit. Oh.
You are in a maze of twisty little passages, all alike. Time to start a fire, crack open a can of Tab, and settle in for FounderQuest.
It is telling that the way that, like, the only way we can have like sick burns on Ben is to like accuse him of being like too productive.
Yeah.
It's all good.
So you know how turkey makes you sleepy?
Tryptophan.
You can buy pills full of that stuff.
I forgot about tryptophan supplement.
Wait, do they have pills that have both tryptophan and melatonin?
No, but
that's like a cocktail.
I don't know if I want to do that. I want to wake up in the morning eventually.
You got to have the tryptophan plus the melatonin plus the NyQuil chaser.
Yeah.
And you just empty all those capsules into like a shot of whiskey. And then you just pound that bad boy.
Throw some Benadryl in there if you're still awake.
So today I thought it would be fun to talk about like an actual sort of feature. Like, I don't think we've actually shipped this feature yet, have we?
We kind of shipped the feature.
We've shipped it a few times in various forms. Not.
It is not GA yet, as the big boys say.
Oh, so if you're like a VIP,
Yes.
you get the feature flag. Like, you can totally use this feature. But
exactly. If you're on the list, then you get to use this feature.
You did deploy. Yeah, you deployed
yes,
some of it,
deployed.
right?
It's
or is
out
it all
there.
of it?
We could launch it today if we really felt like it. But
anyway, I thought it would be fun to talk about this feature because it's something we've been discussing for literally years.
Literally.
I think.
Yeah,
Ben has
about time.
taken a couple shots at it.
I've taken a couple shots at it too. So
damn, I feel like I should have taken some shots at it. And this feature is CSP reporting. So could somebody please tell me what the heck like that is? Like what is CSP reporting?
Well, CSP is content security policy reporting. Content security policy is a feature of modern browsers that allows you to basically send alerts to a URL of your choice when content that you didn't authorize is loaded on the page.
So yeah, in addition to reporting, it also blocks that content, right? I mean, that's the primary use case, is to prevent your site from serving something that you didn't intend it to serve, right? And so the reporting is kind of an extra benefit that you can track. But you can see this in your browser, like, when you open up the console and there's console errors, right? You can see if anything violates a content security policy. You can see that the browser's like, nope, didn't load that.
So what is an example of some bad behavior that this is trying to prevent?
So cross-site scripting is huge. So, you can inject some JavaScript into a vulnerable page. Let's say you have like a content management system that allows you to put some user input in, and then it displays it to some other user. And if it
or you have like user comments or something.
Yeah, and so if you don't escape that stuff properly, you can inject some scripts like into the page, like that some other user sees, right? And so you could steal their cookies or do all kinds of things, right? And content security policy says, well, I don't actually want to allow inline scripts to be executed on my pages because I don't do that sort of thing, right? And so if there is some sort of weakness in your system that allows inline scripting to be put in there that you didn't put in there, then that policy would say, nope, not going to run it.
Oh, wow. I had no idea that it could do things like block inline scripting. I assumed it was just solely a sort of URL based thing where it's like any JavaScript that doesn't come from these specific like domains, block that and report it. But you can do inline stuff too.
Yeah. So you can do both on the page and remote. And I guess like if an example of like something it would block is if a remote script like Google Analytics got hijacked or something, and someone tried to like load another remote script, by dropping it into the DOM or something, that like loaded a JavaScript file from a bad domain, then it would not have that domain whitelisted, and it would block it.
Yeah, it can also block, like you were thinking, Star. It can block connections to remote JavaScript and remote style sheets and remote forms. There are a lot of things that it can do. Like, and another.
It's like any XH like cross domain request, right? Like it'll block anything, I think, or
I don't know. I mean, I know it has like script source
like XHR
and style source directives. So I don't know if it does anything, but
so how do you actually add? So the CSP policy tells the browser to block certain things and possibly report them. So like, how do you what actually does that look like? How do you add a CSP to your page? Is it like a meta tag in the document head or what?
Typically, it's going to be a header that your web server would return, right? So Apache or Nginx would be configured to return this header.
You send it with the request. Actually, I believe in the latest version of Rails, it actually has some pre-configured CSP headers that it sends, and I think it probably does that. Like, I haven't checked, but like in a rack middleware or something, I'm guessing, where it would just add the headers to the request as it's making it. And I think that you can like configure what you're going to allow.
Yeah. So in the new versions of Rails, I think it started in 5.2 actually.
Was it 5.2? Okay.
Yeah. There's this new initializer called Content Security Policy, which allows you to configure that header being sent or not. And one of the things that's cool about the way that Rails did it is that one of the things that Content Security Policy allows specifically for inline scripts and styles is this concept of a nonce. So if you actually do want to have inline script run because for some reason you like to work that way, I don't know, you can actually say this particular inline script is safe to run. So run this, but not anything that I don't declare is safe, right? And so you can use nonces for that. And basically it's just like this random string that you generate that says, yeah, this particular JavaScript section is safe to run. And what Rails does is it generates that nonce for you. And then there's actually a helper, a view helper you can use to wrap your JavaScript. It says, yes, wrap this JavaScript inside this nonce and declare it safe, basically.
Oh, nice. Because otherwise that would be a huge pain in the neck because you'd have to somehow coordinate your headers with sort of the content of your I guess, HTML if you've got like inline JavaScript in that HTML file.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be a huge pain in the neck. And the fact that I
love that about Rails.
The fact that Rails is doing this sort of now, this is all kind of, it's not super new, but it's kind of newish. Like people are just now,
it's still pretty
getting used to this idea.
See, that's why I think that's the reason like we never fully. Ben and I have been tracking this for a long time, and we've been tracking it since it first came out. And I think we kind of saw that this is gonna like catch on at some point, but we don't know like when it's going to reach like the mainstream basically. And I think that Rails adopting is like a pretty good sign that this is pretty much everyone's going to know about this at some point now.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially with Rails 6, people are going to be, upgrading to it and seeing this new initializer showing up when they do the upgrade. Yeah, I think it'll definitely become more widespread.
A few of our earlier attempts, when we were first like learning about CSP and so there's some other similar browser features that go with it. But we were initially thinking that this would be a cool like standalone kind of new thing to build, like a product around it or something like that, or a tool even. And we kind of like jumped back and forth between should we put this in Honey Badger or should we make something specifically for this?
So what exactly is this? Like, so we've described CSPs a little bit. So where do we come in? Like what part are we playing?
Yeah. So the reporting feature I mentioned, is where we come in. So CSP headers have a feature called report URI, which it's that URL that I mentioned that you can give it that it will post the reports to when there is a violation. And so there's like two ways that people use that. There's when they're blocking when they're entirely blocking any requests that are like not allowed. They can still report the violations. And they might want to know that just, for security reasons, like to know that these requests are being made, even though they're blocked. And the other way is that there's also a report only mode, which will basically like still allow the request to happen, but it will send the report as if there was a violation. And that can be handy if you're rolling out CSP, but you don't want to like risk breaking your entire site if you like forgot to whitelist your assets, for example.
Yeah, when I was doing some testing for this, I had a site that I use as a guinea pig. And that was exactly my scenario. Like if there's a bunch of JavaScript already and styles being loaded on the site, I didn't want to break it, but I did want to find out like what things would trigger a CSP violation. So I deployed the app with the report only header and started tracking the violations, and I was able to go back and update the policy based on the things that I saw, like, oh, yes, I'm going to load Google Analytics, so that's fine. I'll put that in my whitelist.
So the idea is that people will set their report URI to point at our servers, and then we'll take those reports and do something intelligent with them, right? Because we already have all this infrastructure for reporting application errors, for integrating with people's like chat systems, ticketing systems, stuff like that. We're already in people's lives, so it kind of makes sense for us to sort of handle that for people as well, especially since it's going to be in Rails. And so this is just something that like we really support Rails very thoroughly out of the box. And
I'm really excited about that aspect of it, because I assume I don't think we've looked into it yet to build it, but I'm hoping that we can actually like we'll automatically be able to send the CSP reports from Rails to Honeybadger without any kind of additional configuration. At least that's how I'd hope that we can make it work. And then maybe even on the Honeybadger side, we could tell people what headers they need to send if there's a violation that they're not catching, and they want to whitelist something. We could help them, like just give them like a drop in, tell them how to basically configure it.
So the idea is that like our gem, our Ruby gem, currently goes in and attaches itself to Rails and picks up all this error data automatically. So hopefully it'll be able to pick up the CSP data automatically too.
Yeah, I think right now we're just building the infrastructure to monitor and report this data. Is where Ben's at, I think. But I think that
at the moment, since we're still in beta, what I've told the people who are testing it, they can do is just here's the report URI setting that you can use to report your violations to our stack. But I think adding that to the gem, like we could detect if it's enabled, and then we say, okay, just slide in this report URI for them automatically. That'd be pretty cool.
Here it is. One of the reasons we didn't go down like the let's create a new like CSP product route is that the data volume can be fairly large for these types of monitoring services, because if you imagine like potentially every user who visits your website could be sending multiple requests per page visit, if there's a lot of violations to whatever your reporting service is. Is that right, Ben? So just imagine the volume of reports that you could potentially be like hammering your API with if you're doing this with thousands or tens of thousands of customers to a single service. So we thought like, we already have one like ops heavy startup. Do we really want like to have an entirely separate one? And the answer was no, let's just roll it into our existing one and handle the traffic anyway.
Yeah, another consideration was that the use case for this is a lot of people want to know that this violation happened, right? It's once you have the enforcement happening, it's actually an error, right? It could be someone trying to hack into your site when you see a violation pop up after you've done all the whitelisting work, right? And so the idea there is we already have all this infrastructure for people to be alerted for errors. So, why would we ask our customers to set that up again, right? You want to check this other kind of thing that looks like an error and feels like an error separately from your errors. Well, but the reason why it wasn't a slam dunk, and we thought about a long time whether to keep it separate, was the other issue. The other side of it is like these payloads are very small. They don't have backtraces. They don't really have any actionable information that we're used to having with a typical error. Like, there's not context, there's not, a lot of that kind of stuff. So we're like, well, it doesn't necessarily fit like a glove into our current thing. So we had to basically create a shim where we take the information that we do get from the browser, which is pretty minimal, and kind of shape that into what we're expecting for notifications. So we can't like just make up a backtrace, right? But we can put in things like, oh, well, the user agent header can turn into the user agent environment variable that we usually get from a server side kind of application, things like that.
I really like how you're reusing our fingerprinting system too, so that because our fingerprinting system is how we actually like deduplicate or dedupe error reports. So if you have like a bunch of errors that are reported from your application that are like from the same location in your app, you don't want to get like 50,000 error reports. You want to get one error report. And so we use fingerprinting to kind of like analyze the error data that's coming in and determine if it's the same error, if it's different. And we're kind of doing the same thing, basically repurposing that system to dedupe the CSP reports, right?
Yeah. And it's still not perfect. Like there's still, I'm looking into my sample project and I can see that there are a bunch of violations that look very similar, but they're somewhat different, right? So I don't know that I've totally nailed that yet, and that's one reason why I haven't released it for GA. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of volume, like you mentioned, and if you didn't dedupe that, it would just be noise.
Yeah, well, I'm sure as we get more data to work with, like those fingerprints will evolve just like they did for errors too. Because as I recall, we had the same situation where as you get more data, you see more edge cases, and you can build that into the algorithm, basically.
Yeah. So, question: how are we dealing with the fact that the service is going to have so much traffic? Like, it's conceivably going to have a lot more traffic than our error reporting, sort of inbound error reporting system. How are we managing that?
Well, I mean, it might have significantly more traffic. It's hard to say yet because, I mean, if you look at our JavaScript client traffic, we get a lot of traffic from JavaScript
that's
errors,
true.
Right?
Yeah, which, by the way, is a significantly like small portion of our actual like installs. Like we have a lot of server-side customers and relatively fewer client-side, but yet the client-side is a large portion of our
right. Yeah. So
everyone, don't go out and install the client side reporting at once, please.
Yeah.
So you're saying we should ditch JavaScript and just go back to straight Rails?
Oh, can we please?
It's sort of Node.js movement, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we might be buried in traffic. Because of like Josh was saying, that
it depends who uses it, right? It really does. Like, or how fast it gets adopted.
So we have our normal auto scaling stuff in place, and so we can handle increases of traffic pretty gracefully. But I'm also looking at maybe using Lambda for this. So back in November of 2018, AWS announced that you could in fact connect an application load balancer, route that traffic directly to a Lambda rather than having to use API gateway, which saves you buckets and buckets of money,
cool.
Right? If you are using a lot of API requests.
Yeah.
And so we might be able to do that. I know like Josh, way long time ago, looked at using Lambda for some other high volume stuff. And like the API gateway costs were just ridiculous.
Well, that service is a lot like this service, actually. That was our Logplex service, which takes basically like a Heroku log drain and scans the logs for error-like events like on Heroku's side. And then it's the same situation where it's not an application exception, but we kind of massage it a little bit and convert it into one if it meets our criteria, and then forwards it onto our API. But yeah, the like API gateway was going to be crazy expensive based on the amount of traffic that we would receive.
Yeah. So the Heroku logs basically like we send people error alerts if like Heroku times out.
Yeah. Yep. Times out. There's a whole class, like a class of errors. There's like, I don't know, 20 or so, I think, different error codes that you can get with Heroku. That's like before it reaches your application, like your application's execution.
Yeah, like a memory use. Like if you run out of memory.
Yeah, memory. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a non-starter. We tried that back a few years ago, but now that you can use an application load balancer instead and just send that traffic directly to Lambda function, that might be viable. And the benefit there is that Lambda could scale to infinity, right? At least that's what the marketing materials say. So we don't have to worry about spinning up instances in an auto scaling group like we do today. So that's one less concern. So that could be interesting. So I'm playing around with that.
If that is a successful experiment, I could see us moving a lot of stuff into there. Actually, like we could move Logplex into there, back into Lambda. Yeah. We could potentially move our entire collector.
Yeah.
someday. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it gets us to the goal, closer to the goal that Star has of like no infrastructure, right? Just put it all on Amazon's plate and let them do it all. Yeah.
Yeah, I should probably explain that Lambda is Amazon's serverless play, where instead of administering a server, you just give them some code and they run it whenever a certain event happens that you define. So, whenever somebody goes to our URL with some payload data, the load balancer would then run, tell Lambda to run this bit of code, send the data to it, and, bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah. It's some people refer to that as functions as a service, FaaS.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, so right now it's deployed on our current infrastructure since we're, not expecting a whole lot of volume from our test users. And we might stick with that because it's been working well for all these years and we just keep on working it. But, Lambda is interesting, so I'm playing with it.
Even though Lambda sort of bills by invocation, it's still possibly doable in terms of price.
Yeah, so there was a great presentation at ServerlessConf San Francisco about your utilization of your, let's say you're comparing costs for, like in our scenario, running EC2 instances all the time versus doing that same kind of workload in Lambda. Mm-hmm. And so the concern is, well, if I have a per invocation cost, then that's going to be way more expensive. But in reality, like usually many loads in EC2 are like, 20 to 30% CPU utilization, right? So you're paying for a lot of idleness in that case. And so the theory is that if you're not paying for that idle, if you're paying, per invocation, then it could actually work out. So we're just going to test it and see what it looks like, and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't.
Yeah, that'll be good to know though, because this is probably like one of the, I think of all the things I can think of, like this, like CSP and Logplex are the two things that I could see. Like, I mean, that's going to be the highest number of invocations that we would ever use.
Right.
I guess I may have just screwed us, but
until the next thing, that's the highest.
Yeah. We're like going to we're going to bring back metrics and put metrics in a Lambda or something.
Yeah. I guess one thing that would be neat is if there were a way to, sort of in a nice, serverless automated way, just kind of, like batch the, requests. Cause I don't like for CSP, it doesn't really matter if like it's a second later. It'd be nice if they could sort of batch requests into groups of 100, and then you only have.
This is why we pay Star the big bucks, because he's saving. This is how he saves us money. He's like, what big bucks?
Stay tuned at the end of this episode for my phone number. No.
Yeah, so I mean, we've been working on this, like I mentioned, for years. Literally, like it was funny. I didn't really realize that until I went back and to our customer support, and we keep track of all those things. And everyone who requested CSP all along the years, I went back and told them, "Hey, now you can come and test it." And I just happened to notice that the oldest request was 3 years ago. So I was like, "Yeah,
oh my goodness,
3 years in the making. This is a good vintage feature."
Where are we on this? Like, is there you have sort of plans to release this general availability anytime soon, or is it we're just going to wait for a while and play it by ear?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll take us a long time to figure out whether it's working for these testers. So a week or two,
unless it's not working.
I thought you were going to say we're going to do it like live today.
Oh, do it right now, like while we're
on
recording.
The podcast.
Right now.
Oh, we should do that.
we should ship it on a podcast though, on a Friday.
On a Friday. Well, I mean, it's kind of cheating because it's already shipped. It's just we haven't advertised it.
We'll cut that out, Ben. Shut up.
We could just tell people that we're shipping it.
Speaking of,
exactly.
That is the strategy that we've used time and time again, just launching darkly. And I love that strategy, putting it out there in production, seeing how it works before you tell the masses about it. And it works out great for us. Like we can find out any edge cases like you were talking about earlier, and maybe some bad mistakes that we can avoid. There have been times where we've put something out there and get some real data in there. It's like, oh, that was a bad idea, and launching darkly really helps with that.
Yeah. If only we could do that with like changes to the notice pipeline, or like the fingerprinting thing I mentioned, like deploying anything like that touches that, like the fingerprinting or anything that could like instantly change how many notifications people get on any given like second to second basis is terrifying.
Yeah.
But I don't really see a way around that. I mean, I guess maybe there's something, but yeah, we got to live with a little bit of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Well, this is cool. This is, I've learned some stuff about CSP that I didn't know before. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing this feature in production and everything.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like this test site that I was using it on, it's actually pretty neat to see the violations come in and be like, oh yeah, I do want to have that particular JavaScript loaded, or let me take a closer look at that and see what it's doing, because it's like Josh mentioned, the eval thing. Like, a third-party script can inject some script into your page, and maybe you don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So yeah, it's pretty cool to see it in action and to see, I feel better now that site has that in place.
Yeah, and even though like this stuff seems like kind of sort of big company like security audit type thing, like this is just a reality that we're living in now, that the web is becoming more and more sort of regulated. There's more and more issues of compliance that people have to deal with, and part of that is security best practices. And so here comes along CSP. So as much as like it sounds not very, very fun to just set that up and like look at all these alerts and stuff, that's just the way things are going, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's nice, like frameworks like Rails that are kind of making it turnkey, and services like Honey Badger that can plug into that also as a turnkey monitoring solution. Makes it a lot easier.
We love our customers. And so we make their lives easier by providing them these awesome tools.
It's a shame we don't have video, because we could like flash a 1-800 number.
Yeah, except who would answer it? Ben. The answer is Ben.
I wasn't going to say anything, but yes. I think we all know the answer to that question.
Yeah. All right. Well, are we good to go on this one? You think we should put in the
I think
can?
so.
It's a wrap.
Yeah.
It's a wrap. Ship it. Okay. See you later, guys. Have a good one.
See ya.
Well, that wraps up our show for this week. Those boys really sound like they know what they're talking about, huh? Want to help us out? Head on over to your podcast service and give us a review. Any questions or comments? We're on Twitter @FounderQuest. Thanks.
FounderQuest is a weekly podcast by the founders of Honey Badger. Zero instrumentation, 360-degree coverage of errors, outages, and service degradations for your web apps. If you have a web app, you need it. Available at honeybadger.io. Want more from the founders? Go to FounderQuestPodcast.com. That's one word. You can access our huge back catalog or sign up for our newsletter to get exclusive VIP content. FounderQuest is available on iTunes, Spotify, and other purveyors of fine podcasts. We'll see you next week.